It's time to head back to the Peterbrook Chocolatier studio line at 205-342-9904, where we welcome back to the program Dr. Aloiya Earl, who joined us. I guess it's been a month and a half or so now. Dr. Earl specializes in sports medicine. She completed a residency at Ohio State University and then served a fellowship right here in Tuscaloosa at the University of Alabama. You can also catch her work as a medical columnist on the Ohio State-related website 11 Warriors. Dr. Earl, thank you for joining us again here on the program.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we had you on, as we said. I guess it's been a month and a half or two since we last spoke. And I know when we talked, you were fairly confident that a college football season this fall could be pulled off. Has anything happened since our last discussion that has kind of changed your opinion on that? Certainly this latest topic involving myocarditis has been a hot topic here in the last 48 hours. Where are you at still on the potential for a season, Doctor?
Right. So I was definitely optimistic when we spoke before, and I remain optimistic from my personal stance on it. I think that a season can be pulled off, and I've always thought and still think that there could be a season with just spaced out games and organized protocols for testing and dealing with positive cases, especially in the Power Five. I think the resources that these schools have can definitely pull off some sort of season. But as far as whether or not a fall season will actually happen and happen on time or happen at all, I think that has definitely changed, unfortunately, especially over the last several days with these conversations.
And it sounds like the aforementioned myocarditis has become a central topic in kind of the pessimism that has cropped up here in recent days. What do we need to know about myocarditis, Dr. Earl? And is it a new concern in the world of sports medicine, or is it something that's actually been on the radar for a while now?
So myocarditis is essentially inflammation of the heart muscle. So the myo means muscle, the card part of that means heart, and then the itis is inflammation. So that's what that word means. And it's a known potential after effect of several viruses, like the flu, for example. So it's not new. The concern with athletes, though, is that this after effect can be asymptomatic when they're just resting, but then when they vigorously exercise, it can become symptomatic and feel like chest pain or trouble breathing, sometimes lightheadedness. And the worst concern is that it can throw the heart into an arrhythmia. Basically, the heart muscle, when it's inflamed, goes rogue and it goes into an arrhythmia, and that's the most dangerous concern. The good news is, though, is that this has been around. This is something that we know about, and there's accessible ways to screen for it. It produces kind of a characteristic sound when we listen to the heart with a stethoscope. EKGs can pick it up, and then blood tests and heart echoes, which is like a heart ultrasound, and heart MRIs are other tests that we can use to pick up myocarditis. And these are all resources that Power 5 schools and their medical staff have at hand that they can screen these positive cases prior to returning to play. So it's like anything in medicine. We know the risk, we screen for it and address it, and if an athlete has it, we can take care of them and hold them out as long as they need to be held out to go back safely. So it needs to be on our radar, and I agree with that concern, but it has been, and it's nothing new or groundbreaking that we can't effectively mitigate.
So, Dr. Earl, if I'm an incoming freshman, let's say I'm just going into a program at the Power 5 level, maybe even a group of 5, a smaller school, even FCS, it sounds like this is something that just in a typical entry physical or screening as a student athlete joins a program that can be easily detectable. Is that correct?
It can, and I agree. And there's many programs that do screen routinely with EKGs, but this would be an added EKG screening after they've had, if they have a positive COVID case, they would do another EKG screening prior to returning them to a gradual return to play protocol. So it would just kind of be an extra step, but it's not a huge burden at all. It's a really simple, accessible test.
So what are we talking about maybe, because economics are certainly a part of all this. I know for the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, it's something that the tab can probably be picked up quite easily or without a lot of discomfort. But this extra step, as you referred to it, from an economic standpoint, is it something that's excessive if you're maybe an FCS program or a group of five, or is it kind of in line with what you would typically put into that process?
It's not excessive at all. EKGs are really cheap, and they only take a few minutes. If we're getting into heart echoes, those are still, I think, very accessible for even FCS schools. Doing a cardiac MRI on every single athlete, I don't think that's necessary unless they have symptoms and they kind of meet those criteria that there's already a big clinical concern for a myocarditis. But certainly Power 5 programs can afford cardiac MRIs prior to return to play. In my opinion, if we're talking about canceling the season over this, we would be so much better off from a financial standpoint to just hire a cardiologist and a pulmonologist and an electrophysiologist for every team. If we're being super conservative, that would still be so much more economic than completely canceling the season and the losses that would happen from that financially.
So at this point, from a medical standpoint, Dr. Earl, what do you think university presidents, chancellors, what do they need to hear to feel comfortable about moving forward with a season? Or in some instances, do you think the ship has already sailed and then you throw in this myocarditis concern with it, and maybe some opinions are formed to the point that they're irreversible? What can be told to these folks to convince them that it's okay to at least proceed forward?
I hope the ship hasn't already sailed, and if myocarditis is the last straw, I hope that's not the case, because I think they just need to understand how prepared the medical staff of each of these universities is to handle these concerns, and we have the resources to navigate a season. I think that athletes are going to be exponentially more safe in the context of a football facility with all the support personnel and monitoring that they have there every single day than they would be out in the community without their organized season. I know Coach Saban voiced that. There's been several athletes who have voiced that. The rates of infection, even though we don't know exact numbers, they certainly seem to be significantly less within these football programs than they are in the general population. So I just think that they need to know how well that these athletes are protected and cared for at this level.
So as we let you go here, Dr. Earl, logistically here on August 11th, what do you consider to be the biggest obstacle in pulling the season off? Is it the upcoming potential interaction with the student base? Is it travel that would be involved, actual game interaction with opponents? What's the toughest thing to get through right now?
I think the biggest challenge is going to be what the student athletes do outside of the context of their facility. So interaction with students on campus to some degree, but I think most of the in-person classes are going to be these lab courses that have smaller class sizes already, and they can do some social distancing more so than a big lecture hall, which sounds like are going to be mostly virtual. But the off-campus, going to parties and just social interaction with the general student population off campus, I do think that the athletes have a good understanding of the gravity of that and seem like they've had good leadership and have been very responsible with it. So I'm still optimistic and hopeful.
Obviously, optics, something we could have included in that discussion when it comes to presidents as well, but we were trying to stick to the medical aspect. Well, Dr. Earl, as always, we thank you a ton for your time, and best of luck to you, and look forward to having you on again soon.
Thank you so much.